My name is Natalie from Orchid. Welcome to our August webinar for the launch of the TeamWork app for Sage 300. TeamWork introduces a new way for Sage 300 users to collaborate and chat about Sage 300 records. TeamWork is a collaboration between AutoSimply and Orchid. And today we're pleased to introduce Terence Ang to demonstrate some scenarios using TeamWork in Sage 300 with Anne. For those of you who don't know AutoSimply, they are based in Hong Kong and have over 20 years of Sage 300 experience. AutoSimply is well known for their manufacturing module and has focused on developing mobile apps for Sage 300. And there are now more than 2,000 warehouse and salespeople using their mobile apps daily. Orchid has been developing Sage 300 add-ons for over 30 years, is based in Sydney, Australia, and has currently over 7,000 sites in over 80 countries, supported by more than 450 Sage business partners around the world. TeamWork is a made-for-mobile chat app for collaboration in Sage 300. You can manage and approve Sage 300 actions within a chat interface. The chats are stored and displayed in the context of Sage 300 transactions. You can upload documents and photos, update optional fields in the chat app, and they're immediately reflected in Sage 300. You can use a combination of mobile or desktop chat apps in Sage 300 screens. Non-Sage 300 users can participate in the chats, and some transactions can be initiated in the mobile app. It includes easily configurable workflow rules for common notifications and approval scenarios. And all approvals, status changes, and chats are stored in the Sage 300 database for reporting and auditing. TeamWork for Sage 300. What is it? It is a mobility platform that integrates seamlessly with Sage 300 to combine communication and action. It is a versatile platform for chat, workflow, and information sharing. It is configurable and secure. Sage 300 users, typically back-end users, can chat among themselves, but more importantly, they can also chat with non-Sage 300 users, typically front-end users, such as delivery drivers. They can also include customers, subcontractors, vendors, or part-time users. Chats can lead to actions, to progress workflow, request transactions or processes, and share information such as proof of deliveries, expense claims, photos, leave applications. What is behind TeamWorks? AC Chat, which lets you chat, update optional fields in the mobile app. For some transactions, have one level of approval or start some transactions in Sage 300. Extender Runtime and the TeamWork app for Extender, as well as Orchid Notes to display chat information to make the chat visible in the Sage 300 screens, are used to integrate AC Chat to different Sage 300 records. For more advanced customizations, you can also use Extender Developer and Document Management Link for full document management. TeamWork builds on the latest features in Extender Workflow that we demonstrated in last month's webinar, namely the approval and notification workflow templates supported by easy-to-use workflow configuration tools. In the workflow rules, you define what you need to approve, for example, all retail customers, OE shipments to certain countries, purchase orders above a certain amount. You configure how you determine if an approval is required based on various fields in Sage 300, total amount, customer or vendor group, optional fields, the first entry in a transaction, first line in a batch. And then you define who needs to approve. You can have up to 5 sequential approvers. There can be individual users or groups, in particular if you want to do parallel approvals. Before we delve into the demonstration, here's a summary of what AC Chat is. It is a chat app like WhatsApp, Viber, Teams, Messenger, tailored for Sage 300, so users can chat about records and action Sage 300 records in a secure manner with a full audit of the chat saved in Sage 300. works on transaction documents such as OE orders, purchase orders. You can update optional fields, chat about customer, vendor, items, GL batches, AP payment batches, AP invoice batches. You can capture signature, capture images, do some material requests, leave application, expense application, time entries, and run some custom inquiries while you're chatting or before you approve. Let's look at an example in action before we do the various scenario. Here we have a buyer who creates a PO in a standard Sage 300 screen. You can see in the Notes panel, the requester is updated on the status of the approval request. TeamWork triggers a chat approval message and notifies the designated approver in the chat. The approver can run custom inquiries to have more information, either detailed items about the PO or specific inquiries that have been configured. They can ask questions or clarifications via real-time chat messaging to the users who are entitled to view the record, the chat. There is a simple chat approval UI for error-free processing by approvers. Upon approval, TeamWork triggers the release of the PO and notifies the requester. You can have up to 5 levels of approval, sequential. You can create different approval scenarios based on different rules, amount, vendor, group, area. And you can develop more advanced scenarios with Extended Developer Edition. For example, you could email the vendor automatically when the PO is approved. Now, the best way to see really what TeamWork is all about is to see it in action. So Anne and Terence are going to demonstrate a few examples in the sales order process, the purchase order process, and approving batches. Step number 1, consider your business needs. Step number 2, you can set up your workflow rules. Number 3, in those workflow rules, you define and set up the conditions for the workflow. What needs to be approved, how the approval is determined, and who approves. And then we will see the examples of what happens for the users. Number 4, a user will input a transaction, for example, a PO over $10,000. Another user gets notified that something has happened and needs approval. They can then chat about the request. And number 7, eventually each user who needs to approve will approve. The status is updated in Sage 300. And finally, all approvals and messages are logged in the audit trail in the Sage 300 database and transparent and secure in a secure manner for all users who need access to this. Over to you, Anne and Terence.
Thanks, Natalie. My name's Anne from Orchid Systems, and today, together with Terence from AutoSimply, we're going to show you a few examples of using TeamWork for the sales cycle processes. We're going to show you new customer approvals and sales order approvals. We're also going to show you manufacturing order approvals and then attaching a proof of delivery to shipments. For the new customer approval, we're going to create a new customer, and the workflow rules are being set such that if the price list for the new customer is in Asia, then Terence is set as the approver. If the price list is for USA or Europe, then Anne approves. But for all other price lists, both Terence and Anne need to approve in sequence. Over to you, Terence.
For our first TeamWork workflow, let's start with a very simple one. Under the extender module workflow rules, let me show you the setup for customer approval, for a new customer approval. So you can see here that under the what section, we have 3 different scenarios wherein any customer with a price list that belongs in Asia, it falls under the approval of Terence. So you can see under the fields of the customer master, we are using at this point the price list codes. And as long as the value is China or Japan, then it would be under Terence. If the customer is using a price list code of USA or UK, then it would fall under and to approve, and anything else would fall under the approval of both Terence and Anne. So this is just a very simple setup for the workflow rules. And with that, let us now go into the customer master of Sage. So this is now opening AR customer. And I'll just use customer 1400 as my template. So let's now create a new customer called 1430. Let's just call it new TeamWork customer. And of course, what we are now looking at is the process code. So this customer is using WHS as the price list code. Based on our rules, this would fall under the approval of both Anne and Terence. So at this point, I would create this new record. And you can see that automatically TeamWork is triggered in the background. This is now marked for approval by both Anne and Terence. Temporarily, the customer has been set to inactive. If we just refresh, you would see here that for this new customer, using the Orchid note functionality, I can see here information as to its status, who needs to approve it, and who needs to approve it first. So at this point, it's Terence. Let's now go to my mobile phone. And at this point, you can see that I have logged in as Terence on my phone. Under the chat functionality, I have here an automatic notification that I need to approve this customer. So you can see 1430, new customer for TeamWork. I can also see who needs to approve it, and I need to approve it first. So before approval, of course, typically what happens is you would send communication. What is this for? Whoever is requesting it, maybe I want to include Anne in the conversation. Do you know this customer? So something like this. Notice as well that in AC Chat, under TeamWork, we also have custom queries. So based just on SQL scripts, we could create a query that maybe is calling out information about the customer's address, or maybe I want to see who the customer contact is. So all of this information within the item master can actually be accessed by the approver. Eventually, let's say I'm okay with this customer, I would then trigger an approval. So maybe this is okay, and then click on approve. So this is the first level approver, Terence, who is doing approval for this record. And you can see it is now approved, and now it is for approval by the second level user, who is Anne. If we go back to Sage, just refresh the record, I would see here that for customer 1430, this were the communication coming from Terence. Terence has already approved, and now it's pending for approval by Anne. At this point, it is still inactive. So let's now go to my Windows UWP app, wherein I am logged in as Anne. And under the chat, I can see the same notification. This is now the discussion about this record. I can see custom inquiries as well. And then, of course, I can go back and forth, ask more questions. But eventually, let's say we approve this request. So I would confirm approval. And this is now essentially approving the customer. So this is just a quick example of how teamwork can be used to do multiple level of approval. So at this point, it's already approved. And again, if we go back to Sage, just refresh the record, and we would see here that at this point, the customer has already been released. It's active, and approval was obtained from both Anne and Terence.
Thanks, Terence. And the next part of collaboration we're going to show you is the approval of sales orders. So if the sales order total is greater than $10,000 and the location is 1, then Terence and Anne have to approve in sequence. But if the sales order is greater than 10,000 and any other location other than 1, Natalie approves, followed by Steve. But all other sales orders, that is, they're less than $10,000, Wallace needs to approve. Over to you, Terence.
So let's proceed and use this customer to now create a sales order. So under the teamwork rules, so let me just go back to extender teamwork rules. Let's move and create a new sales order. So this is now another workflow wherein we have set up approval for new sales orders based on order total as well as location. So here you can see under the what, I have any orders greater than 10,000 and within location 1 to fall under Terence and Anne. So under the how section, you can see how we have linked the order total field in the SO header table, as well as add a parameter for location. So notice that we have here some preset fields that we can use to create our parameters, but we can always click on F6 and call out all of the fields available in that table. So it can be practically anything as basis for parameter. And then again, who is approving it? If the order was also greater than 10,000, but any other location would then fall under Natalie and Steve. And then the third rule would be anything less than 10,000 would then fall under the approval of Wallace. So these are our example of an SO approval workflow. So instead of using the standard Sage 300 order entry screen, what I want to do now is just quickly show you how we can create orders within the AutoSimply Sales Anywhere app. So imagine now a salesman visiting the customer and then taking his order on the go. So this is just logging into the app. Which customer do we sell to? So I'll just use our new customer record, 1430. And then what kind of transaction am I doing? Is it order, shipment, or order, shipment, and invoice? For today, let's just keep it simple. I just want to create an order and then trigger the approval. So for items, I'm just selecting which item we want to sell. Since we want to also show you the manufacturing order approval later, let me just pick up an item with a bomb. And then let's just say this is for an order quantity of 20. So this is an example of creating an order for a total of 1,760. I can just post. And this is now creating that sales order within Sage 300 via the Sales Anywhere app. So at this point, in the background, again, teamwork would be triggered. It would create order 77, but that would be automatically put on hold. On the desktop, let me show it to you. So if I go now to Sage 300, order entry, the last order that we have created would be order 77. And again, you can see the notes here indicating that this order has been put on hold pending approval this time by Wallace. It is because it's less than 10,000. And let's now go into AC chat. I'll just log out as Anne and log in as Wallace. All right. So this is now logging in, and then you can see that there would be an automatic notification coming from TeamWork that this order 77 is pending approval. So at this point, I can see the details. If I wanted to trigger a custom inquiry, again, maybe I want to see the customer information, like customer statistics, customer address. If I want to, I can even look at the item details using this inquiry within AC chat. Eventually, let's say I approve. So this is now approval of the sales order by Wallace. So notice that all of our approvals are using our chat approval screen. So it would be very easy to use, very intuitive for the approver. And at this point, it's already approved. If we go back now to the desktop, I would now see that there is order 77. It has been released. And I could see under the note that this was approved by Wallace, and any comments that Wallace might have wanted to put in while doing this approval. So that's a very simplistic way of doing SO approvals. Again, we have the facilities to do up to 5 levels of approval if we wanted to.
Thanks, Terence. And now we're going to look at collaboration, including the manufacturing environment.
So at this point, let me then just quickly show you what would happen, let's say, in a manufacturing environment, wherein maybe once the order has been received, the next step actually would be to create a manufacturing order to produce that finished good item for shipment. So in this case, I just want to manually create FG003, maybe an order of 20 pieces. I can put in some reference here, but essentially what we're doing is creating an MO to be produced in production area number 1. So taking a step back, if we look at Extender under the workflow rules for MO approval, I would see here that it is based on production area. So any MOs created within production area 1 would be approved by Terence. Any orders created anywhere else would fall under Anne. So this is just a very basic setup for approval processing. And if we go back to the MO, let's now create that MO. So this is adding a new order within production. And again, on the background, you can see TeamWork is already being triggered. This is now put on hold until approval by Terence. So if we now go back to my phone here, you can see that I have received a notification for approval of MO number 19. I can see the details here. Again, I can ask the planner, what is this for? Any other details that I want using the chat functionality. I can create any number of inquiries around either the MO, the item, or any information that I want to get from Sage. But eventually, I would probably approve this. So I'll just click on approve and put in maybe some comments. OK, and then click approve. So this is now Terence approving this MO. And at this point, this has already been approved. If we go back to the desktop while it's refreshing, you would see that order number 19 has been released already. So that is MO approval being triggered with TeamWork.
Thanks, Terence. And the final part of this sales cycle we're going to demonstrate to you is the collaboration around a shipment. So this is not a approval, but more of a notification. When the shipment is created, people are alerted via AC Chat and request a proof of delivery.
So at this point, of course, we go through the production process. Eventually, it is produced. Let's just jump directly to shipment. So once I have the stock and I want to ship, instead of using the standard OE shipment, let me just quickly use our barcode solution. So this is just to highlight that, again, we have options in Sage to make everything practically real time. So logging into my barcode app here on my phone, I would be able to see that I can trigger a order shipment. It was for the last sales order. So let's say it's order 77. And it was for product FG003. So I can see the item to be shipped is 20 pieces. But before I post this shipment, let's go back to Extender, look at again the workflow rules. So here, what we are doing is triggering a shipment notification for proof of delivery. So looking at the Extender workflow rules, I can see that if location is defined to be 1, it would fall under ANS processing. And if it was any other location, it would go to Terence. So that's the simple way that we have set it up at the moment. And if we go back now to my barcode app, I would see here that this is the item I want to ship. Let's just say I want to ship partially for whatever reason. So this is just a warning, doesn't really matter, and I will just post. So this is now creating a OE shipment within Sage 300. And on the back end, TeamWork is triggered to create a notification. So let's go back to Sage 300 order entry. So order entry, transaction, shipment entry. And we would be looking at the last record. So this was shipment 65 posted via the barcode app. You could see that a notification has been sent out. If I now log in as Anne, I would receive a notification that I need to process this proof of delivery. So this is shipment 65. Maybe I would want to talk to the dispatch, inform them that I will process this ASAP. So this is just standard communication. Maybe I have some attachments or image that I want to put into this document. So let's just say I want to put this image here. And when I deliver the goods to the customer at a later time, I could then go in and maybe get a signature. So this is now to confirm that item has been shipped and received by the customer. Notice that chat allows us to print out shipment forms as well as transaction listings. So this is just an example of how a proof of delivery would look like with TeamWork. You can see the shipment form with the signature. And at this point, you could see that everything is being updated on the chat. And if we go back to the OE shipment and refresh, you would see that I can see all of the communication for the shipment, as well as a hyperlink to even open attachments. So if I click on this line here, it would open the file for viewing. So this is just how we can use the TeamWork solution to do proof of delivery.
Thanks, Terence. So you've now seen a variety of approvals and notifications using TeamWork to glue the front end to the back end processes. We're now going to have a look at using TeamWork as part of the purchase cycle workflows and approvals in Sage 300. We're going to have a look at a purchase request being approved, a purchase order being approved, and an internal usage being approved. Initially, for the purchase request, we can set the rules for the purchase request documents to say who approves what and how. And in our example, our rules are based on the document total. If the document total is less than $1,000, Anne approves. Otherwise, if it's more than $1,000, Anne approves and then Steve approves. So having a look how the rules can be set up in Sage 300, in the workflow rules, for any of the workflow templates that you have, and TeamWork comes with some 25 workflow templates, you can define as many rules as you want. So in this case, we have two rules. The first rule says if the extended cost field on the purchase requisition header is less than 1,000, but we can choose fields from the header, the first line, or the optional fields, or have a rule for all the records. So if the extended cost is less than 1,000, Anne approves, whereas the second rule, all other records other than the ones less than 1,000, Anne approves and then Steve approves. So it's the ones over 1,000. So logging into the chat app as Natalie. So Natalie is going to create two purchase requisitions in the app, and whether the requisitions are created through the app or on the Sage 300 desktop, the same workflow will apply. So the first requisition is going to have two items, and that will be requisition number 23. And then the second requisition is going to be over $1,000. So just for one item, but for a quantity of 100. And when it's saved, requisition 24 is created. So back in Sage 300, logged in as Anne, Anne can go to the workflow console and can see these two new requisitions have been created, requisition 23 and requisition 24, and they're both waiting for her approval. And any user using the Sage 300 desktop, when they review these requisitions, they will see the workflow has created a chat with the information regarding those particular workflows. So for requisition 24, where the total is over $1,000, a workflow has been started for two approvers, first Anne, then Steve. And requisition 23, it's less than $1,000, so only Anne needs to approve. Firstly, I'm going to use the workflow console to approve requisition 23. And when I approve the requisition, it will drop off the console because there was only one level of approver that was required. And now logging into the AC Chat app as Anne and having a look at those two new requisitions. Look at purchase requisition 23, and you can see that the chat was created by TeamWork, by the workflow, and then the purchase requisition was approved by Anne. But having a look at requisition 24, which is also ready for Anne to approve, but Anne knows that Steve also needs to approve this. So as a chat user, we can discuss this purchase order, and I'm going to ask Terence if he is okay with this purchase requisition. Terence would see both these requisitions because he's been included in the chats on them, and would be able to go and comment back to Anne. So for requisition 24, he's going to give Anne some feedback. He can see the workflow request is waiting for Anne to approve and then Steve to approve. It's currently assigned to Anne. Can see Anne's question and can reply accordingly. And logging back into the app as Anne can see she's got one new message. When she clicks on it, she sees Terence's reply and can go ahead and approve this purchase requisition. But based on our workflow rules, Anne can now see it's now waiting for Steve to approve. And back in Sage 300, any Sage 300 user who has access to purchase requisitions can see the notes. So they can see that the TeamWork started the workflow. Anne asked a question of Terence, Terence responded, and then Anne approved, and it's now waiting for Steve to approve. So logging in as Steve, Steve can see purchase requisition 23 that Anne approved previously, and also see the full history of what's happening on purchase requisite 24 and waiting for him to approve. So again, he could collaborate with any of the team members of this chat, or if he's happy, he could go ahead and approve. And he sees it's now approved. And so does any Sage 300 desktop user. They can see the full history here as well. And the document has been taken off hold. And now we're going to have a look at purchase order approvals. This is a simple rule that if the ship to location is 1, then Terence approves. All other ship to locations, Steve approves. The workflow rules, what, how, and who, for the purchase orders are: if the purchase order is for the ship to location 1, Terence approves, and if the ship to location is not 1, then Steve approves. We are going to use the purchase order screen to create a purchase order for vendor 1200 based on the requisition 23. And when we post the purchase order, the workflow kicks in and assigns the workflow to Steve because the ship to location on the header was not set to 1. And the purchase order has been put on hold. And Steve sees purchase order 44 and could collaborate with other team members or just approve the purchase order. And the last TeamWork example we're going to look at in the purchase cycle is the internal usage approvals and workflow. And the rules we're going to use: if the used by user is Natalie, then Anne and Terence have to approve one after the other. So having a quick look at the rules, in this case we have 4 rules based on the used by user on the internal issue. So if the used by user is Natalie, then Anne needs to approve, followed by Terence. Steve needs to approve Wallace's internal issues. Emma does not require approval, and all other users require approval by Wallace. Logged into the app as Natalie, she can create an internal usage document. She can select the location and add as many items as what she needs. So when the document is created, an internal usage document is created in Sage 300. So in IC, anyone using the Sage 300 desktop, they would see the new internal usage document that's being created. They can see that the used by user for this internal usage is Natalie, and that both Anne and Terence need to approve. Logging into the chat as Anne, she can see this new internal usage number 9 and see it's waiting for her approval. So she's going to approve, add any comment as is required. So Anne's sending Natalie a message saying to let Terence know when she has received these items so that he can post the internal usage, which is built into his approval step. And refreshing the internal usage message, we can see that Anne has approved, the next approver is Terence, and that Anne has asked Natalie to let Terence know when received. So logged in now as Natalie, she can see the internal usage document number 9 that she created, that it's been approved by Anne, and it's now waiting on Terence, and she can see the message from Anne. So when she receives these, she can send Terence a message, and this is reflected back on the Sage 300 desktop. And logging in as Terence, Terence sees the internal usage document number 9, sees that Anne approved first of all, asked Natalie to let him know when it was done, sees the message from Natalie and can see that the workflow instance is waiting for his approval. So he can go ahead and approve. And once approved, he sees the full summary, as do the other members of the chat. And back on the Sage 300 desktop, you can see that internal usage number 9 has been posted, and we've got the full history of the collaboration between the team members. And that concludes the presentation of the 3 sample processes using TeamWork for the approval in the purchase cycle. And just as we can configure our workflow approvals and business processes and collaborate using TeamWork around documents and master files, we can do the same around batches. You are able to configure workflow approvals and communication chats via TeamWork for AP batches, AR batches, GL and IC batches. And we're going to demonstrate GL batch approval and AP payment batch approval. For our GL batch approval, the rules we have set is if the source ledger is the GL, so an entered batch in the GL, then any member of the finance group needs to approve other than the person who entered the batch. And we need 2 members of the finance group to approve in any order. If it's not a GL batch, then approval is not required, so all the subledgers get auto-posted. For our workflow rules for our GL journal batch approval, we have configured that for any batches that have the source ledger as GL, that a member of the finance group needs to approve, followed by another member of the finance group. But because we have selected this option, exclude entered by, then even though the person who enters the batch is in the finance group, they will not be able to approve the batch. So having a look at the finance group, we see that Anne, Emma, Natalie and Steve are all members. So I'm going to enter the batch as Anne, and then when I make it ready to post, the members of the finance group will be notified via AC chat. And if Anne attempts to approve the batch, she will get a message that she's not allowed to. But the other members can still collaborate for the GL batch, and then any 2 of the members can approve one after the other. And on the Options tab for the GL batches, we have configured that when we get the final approval, we will auto-post the GL batch. So I'm logged in as Anne, and our workflow is triggered on making the batch ready to post. So in Anne making the batch ready to post, the GL workflow has been triggered, and I am notified that 2 finance users need to approve. So Anne could go to the workflow console and see this GL batch is waiting for a member of the finance group, and Anne is a member of the finance group, and that's why it is on her console, and she should ordinarily be able to go ahead and approve. But a user cannot approve their own workflow because I entered the batch, then I cannot approve it. So logging into the app as Steve, Steve can see he's got a notification about the GL batch approval for batch number 224. And because he's a member of the finance group, he can come ahead and approve. But perhaps he needs more documentation on this particular batch, and so asks Anne for details on the batch before he can approve. So back in the GL batch list, all Sage 300 users who have access to the GL can see the communication that has been going on about batch number 224. First, TeamWork created the chat and sent the chat to the finance group, saying it was waiting for 2 approvers from the finance group, and then Steve asked Anne for some additional information. And logged into the chat app as Anne can also see this request, and can use AC Chat to attach her workings and respond to Steve accordingly. Steve now has access to the spreadsheet, which he can review before approving. And because this workflow has been configured with an approval comment, he can add his comment while he's approving the workflow. And we can see now that Steve has approved this batch, and it's gone on to level 2 of approvals, which is also a member of the finance group. And back in stage 300, you have a full record. So TeamWork started the chat. Steve asked Anne for the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet was attached, and you can access it via the notes by clicking here, but also using the document management link. We have downloaded that file for document management link for subsequent access on Sage 300. And then we see Steve approved the batch, and now it's waiting for the second level of approval. So logged into AC Chat as Natalie, who is a member of the finance group, can also see the full history of the communication. So Anne requests approval of the batch. Steve asked Anne for the spreadsheet. She has access to the spreadsheet if she needs it. She sees Steve's approved and is okay with it. She could review the spreadsheet and go ahead and approve as well. And the chat is updated, showing that both levels of approval have now been made. And when we refresh the screen, we see that with the second level of approval, it attempted to post the batch. But this is a chat for young players. I do need to create the financial year first. And for any of the workflows, a full history is kept of each approval and each step. So looking at our GL batch number 24, we can look at the detail log, and we can see initially the workflow was started by Anne, and it was assigned to the finance group, and then Anne tried to approve, but it still stayed in the status of waiting for the finance group because Anne tried to approve her own batch, and you cannot approve the workflow that you started. And then Steve approved the batch and made a comment, and finally Natalie approved a batch and also had her comment. And the last scenario we're going to look at is the posting of the AP payment batch. The rules we have set up is for all manually entered payment batches, where the batch type is entered, then both Anne and Steve need to approve, whereas if it's a system-generated or an imported batch, then only Steve needs to approve. Having a look at the rules for the AP payment batch workflows, we can see that we've set it for batch type equals 1, which is manually entered. Anne and Steve need to approve. All others, only Anne needs to approve. And you are able to select any field from the batch header, the payment entry, the applied payments, or optional fields. And on the Options tab, we have configured to send AC chat messages, given the AC chat template, and we've said no to auto post. So the second level of approval for this particular batch will make the batch ready to post, as opposed to posting as what we saw with the GL. So in AP, if we make this batch ready to post, which is the trigger for the workflow just as it was on the GL batch, and that approval is required for all manually entered payment batches, and the ready to post has been set back to no, and logged in as Anne to the AC chat, you can see that the workflow has sent a chat message showing that there are 2 approvers, Anne being the first approver. Anne will go ahead and approve. And she can see now that it's ready for Steve to approve. And logging in as Steve, he can see the history that Anne has approved, can chat to other team members if required, or go ahead and approve. And back in Sage 300, you can see that the payment batch has been made ready to post, and we have the full history of when the workflow instance first got created via TeamWork and all the messages sent through to the chat, and approving, and then Steve approving. And that concludes the 2 batch approval examples that we are going to show you in this webinar. Over to you, Natalie.
We have seen a few examples of using TeamWork in the sales process, the purchasing process, and general finance processes in Sage 300, such as batches. To set it up is very simple. Consider your business needs, install and activate all the modules, set up your rules, define the conditions, and you've seen how users can start using Sage 300 and chat to collaborate on the various Sage 300 records. How to get started with TeamWork. TeamWork includes over 20 standard workflow templates for a range of Sage 300 modules and processes, like we have seen in accounts receivable, accounts payable, general ledger, inventory control, purchase order, order entry, the RMA module, AutoSimply's manufacturing module, and AutoSimply AC chat module. And more will be developed over time. So you start by identifying the key business processes you want to automate, approve, chat about, and then you can tailor Sage 300 in order to streamline your communication, automation, and decision making for those selected processes. So if you start with 1 or 2 modules, templates, to get familiar with the features and possibilities, then you can keep adding them as your requirements change. The help includes details on how to use those new features. So the key steps to set up TeamWork is to install and activate AC Chat, Extender, and Information Manager. You can then import and enable the relevant Extender workflow modules for the processes that you need. And this all applies to master files, transaction headers, and batches. And we're very happy to help you get started with TeamWork. In summary, the main benefits are that TeamWork facilitates collaboration between Sage 300 users. You have a centralized collaboration platform and you avoid email, WhatsApp, and phone call overload. It increases accessibility to all users. You can chat, inform, discuss with team members anywhere securely. It accelerates communication. It's real time, no delay, whether you're in the office or on the road. Improves tracking. You have very clear conversation logs and audit trail for every Sage 300 chat and decision. We will do more detailed training on teamwork and extender rules in the next month's webinar, it'll be part 1. And in October at TPAC Asia in Saigon, we have scheduled a half day of joint training session with AutoSimply, where we will continue with more hands-on training. And now let's hand back to the team for questions.